Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the Great Council Chamber on Nexus Prime. The massive dome stretched, high above her head, filled with floating platforms where alien delegates sat in their special atmosphere bubbles. Some breathed methane, others needed intense cold, and a few required radiation that would kill most other species in seconds. The chamber could hold representatives from all 847 member species of the Galactic Council. Today, all of them had come to hear what the human ambassador had to say. Elena wore her simple black diplomatic uniform. No fancy decorations or alien jewelry like some ambassadors preferred. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her brown eyes were calm as she looked around the chamber. She had served as Earth's voice here for 15 years. She knew every species, every political group, every alliance and rivalry that shaped galactic politics. The Zephyrians floated on their platform like living clouds of silver mist. They were ancient and wise, or so they claimed. Their voice came through the translation system as a whisper that somehow reached every corner of the chamber. Ambassador Vasquez, you requested this emergency session. The council is ready to hear your statement. Elena nodded and stepped forward. Her voice was steady and clear as she began to speak. Honored delegates, I stand before you today to deliver a message from the United Earth government and all human colonies throughout the galaxy. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the buzzers, insect-like creatures who usually clicked and hummed constantly, went quiet on their platform. After 200 years of membership in this council, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, the silence broke like a dam bursting. Thousands of different sounds filled the chamber. Roars, clicks, musical tones, electronic beeps, and dozens of other noises that human ears could barely process. The translation system struggled to keep up as angry and confused voices overlapped. Elena waited for the chaos to calm down. She had expected this reaction. High Counselor Zethka of the Hegemony raised one of his 4 arms for silence. His species looked like giant praying mantises covered in blue-green scales. They had ruled their section of the galaxy for over 1,000 years, and believed they understood politics better than anyone else. Ambassador, this is clearly an emotional response to yesterday's vote. Perhaps if you return to your quarters and consider your words more carefully. There is nothing to reconsider, Elena said firmly. The Council voted 846-1 to impose behavioral modification protocols on all human colonies. You decided that humans are too dangerous and unpredictable to be allowed full freedom in galactic society. You want to change our very nature because you fear what we might become. The Altarian delegate, a tall blue-skinned humanoid with large silver eyes, spoke in a musical voice. The protocols are for everyone's safety, including your own species. Humans have started 17 wars in the past century. We also ended 23 wars started by other species, Elena replied. We stopped the Corvin Stellar conflict from destroying both empires. We saved the Altarian homeworld when the Crystal Plague threatened to kill every living thing on your planet. Human peacekeepers patrol the border zones that you other species are too afraid to enter. Supreme Hive Mind Unit 77 buzzed from the insect platform. Humans are chaos agents. Your species does not follow logical patterns. This makes you dangerous to galactic stability. Elena smiled, and somehow that expression made several delegates shift uncomfortably on their platforms. You're right. We are unpredictable. We don't follow your neat little patterns and rules. That's exactly why this galaxy needs us, and it's exactly why we're leaving. She reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out a small device. With a click, a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. Numbers, charts, and data streams filled the air between the platforms. Let me show you what you're really voting to lose, Elena said. 60% of all interstellar cargo is transported on human-operated vessels. 93% of the quantum communication network that allows you all to talk to each other instantly across the galaxy is maintained by human technicians. 78% of deep space rescue operations are carried out by human crews. The display changed, showing new information. 42 ongoing territorial disputes are mediated by human diplomats. 15 border zones are patrolled exclusively by human security forces. The early warning system that watches for threats from outside the galaxy is operated entirely by human scientists and military personnel. Counselor Zefka's compound eyes focused on the data. These statistics are concerning, but surely other species can take over these responsibilities. Of course they can, Elena agreed. The question is, will they? And how long will it take? And what happens to galactic civilization while you figure it out? She gestured, and the hologram changed again. Now it showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of red dots marking human colonies, stations, and ships. Every red dot represents humans who have dedicated their lives to keeping this galaxy running smoothly. As of tomorrow, they will all be recalled to human space. The chamber erupted again, but this time the voices sounded worried instead of angry. Elena raised her hand for quiet one last time. You want stability? You want predictability? You want to remove the chaos agent from your perfect galactic society? Her voice grew harder with each word. You're about to get exactly what you asked for. Let's see how stable your galaxy is without us. She turned and began walking toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. Ambassador! The Zephyrian voice called after her. Surely we can discuss this further. Perhaps some compromise. Elena stopped and looked back over her shoulder. The time for compromise ended when you voted to reprogram our children's minds to make them more compliant. You made your choice. Now live with it. She walked out of the chamber without looking back. Behind her, the greatest collection of alien civilizations in galactic history began to understand that they had just made a terrible mistake, but it was too late. The humans were going home, and they were taking their chaos with them. The galaxy was about to learn what order without chaos really looked like. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of her cargo ship, the Wandering Star, as it approached the Altarian trade station. A crew of 12 humans had been hauling medical supplies and rare metals between Altarian colonies for the past 6 months. It was good work, steady pay, and the blue-skinned Altarians treated them with respect. That was about to change. Captain, her communications officer called out. We're getting the recall signal from Earth Command. Sarah had been expecting this message for 3 days. Ever since Ambassador Vasquez walked out of the Galactic Council, every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy was receiving the same order. Return to human space immediately. Acknowledge the signal, Sarah said. She turned to her cargo chief. Mike, what are we carrying? 40 tons of medical equipment bound for the Altarian Research Station, and 60 tons of processed metals for their construction projects on New Altair. Mike replied, checking his tablet. Sarah nodded. Dump it all at the nearest station. We're going home. The bridge crew looked at her with a mix of excitement and worry. Going home meant leaving behind jobs and friends they had made among the alien species. But it also meant they wouldn't have to worry about the new behavioral modification protocols the Council had voted to impose within hours. Similar conversations were happening on thousands of human vessels throughout the galaxy. On the Quantum Communication Relay Station orbiting Nexus Prime, Chief Engineer Tommy Walsh received his orders with a grim smile. For 20 years, he and his team of human technicians had maintained the complex quantum entanglement, arrays that allowed instant communication across the galaxy. The work required a special kind of mind that could understand both the technical and intuitive aspects of quantum mechanics. Back it up, boys, Tommy announced to his team. We're shutting down the relay. But sir, one of his younger technicians protested. "If we shut this down, half the galaxy won't be able to talk to each other. Not our problem anymore." "Kid," Tommy replied. "The council wanted us gone. They're getting their wish." The technicians began following carefully scripted shutdown procedures. They didn't sabotage anything or break equipment on purpose. They simply removed the human elements that kept everything working. Special software was deleted. Access codes were changed to lock out non-human users. Calibration settings that took years to perfect were reset to factory defaults by the end of the day. The communication station was technically functional, but it might as well have been a piece of expensive art for all the good it did anyone. The same scene played out on relay stations throughout the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the border world of Epsilon Ceti, Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos received her evacuation orders just as she was mediating a dispute between two alien species. The Corvan Empire and the Stellar Federation had been arguing over mining rights to an asteroid field for 6 months. Without human peacekeepers keeping both sides calm, the argument had been escalating toward violence. Colonel Santos, the Corvan general, chittered through his translator. "Surely you cannot leave now. We are so close to a peaceful solution." The Corvan looked like a cross between a crab and a spider, with 6 legs and 4 arms covered in dark red armor plating. Despite their fearsome appearance, they were actually quite reasonable once you learned how to talk to them. "I'm sorry, General Clickfake," Maria replied, "but my orders are to return to human space immediately. I'm sure you and Commander Vel9 can work something out." The Stellar Federation commander was a floating jellyfish-like creature in a mechanical suit filled with ammonia. His translated voice sounded worried. "But Colonel, without a neutral mediator, how can we trust each other? Our species have been enemies for 300 years. Maria gathered her papers and equipment. "That's something you'll have to figure out yourselves. The Galactic Council decided they don't need human chaos agents anymore. Good luck." She left the conference room, knowing that within weeks the two sides would probably be shooting at each other again. Similar scenes were happening on dozens of border worlds and disputed territories where human peacekeepers had been maintaining fragile truces between hostile species. On the trade world of New Mumbai, shipping coordinator Raj Patel watched as human cargo vessels began leaving their docking bays. The massive station depended on human ships to carry goods between different sectors of the galaxy. Humans were willing to travel dangerous routes and deal with hostile species that other spacers avoided. Within 48 hours, 60% of the station's shipping capacity was gone. Alien vessels remained docked, but their crews were too nervous to travel the same routes that human captains had navigated routinely. The first shortages began almost immediately. The Gossamer Collective, a species that lived on crystalline structures and ate refined starlight, found that their food shipments had stopped coming. Human traders were the only ones willing to navigate the radiation storms around their homeworld to deliver supplies. On the pleasure planet of Hadonos, alien tourists discovered that many of their favorite luxuries were no longer available. Human farmers on agricultural worlds had been growing exotic fruits and delicacies that required special techniques. Other species could grow basic food, but they couldn't match the human talent for creating things that tasted amazing rather than simply nutritious. The Zephyrians, floating in their crystal palaces above the clouds of their gas giant homeworld, began to notice problems with their environmental systems. Human engineers had designed and maintained the atmospheric processors that kept their cities comfortable, without regular maintenance performed by humans who understood both the technology and the Zephyrian biology. The systems began to drift out of optimal ranges. 3 days after Elena Vasquez left the council chambers, emergency sessions were being called on dozens of worlds. Trade was slowing down. Communication between star systems was becoming unreliable. Border disputes were heating up. Supply lines were breaking down. But the real crisis was just beginning to show itself. The Council had been so focused on containing human unpredictability that they had never bothered to learn exactly how much the galaxy depended on human services. They had simply assumed that humans were easily replaceable. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. In the Great Council chamber on Nexus Prime, emergency lights flickered as the power grid struggled with load balancing issues. The human technicians who normally maintained the station systems were already halfway home to Earth. Counselor Zethka looked around the chamber and felt something his species rarely experienced: uncertainty about the future. 2 months after the humans left, the galaxy was falling apart. General Clickthake of the Corvan Empire stared at the tactical display showing Stellar Federation warships moving toward the disputed asteroid field. Without human mediators to keep both sides talking, the 6-month argument over mining rights had exploded into open warfare in just 3 weeks. General, Federation forces are taking position around the primary asteroid cluster, his aide reported. They're claiming exclusive mining rights to the entire field. Clickthak's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Corvans were a proud warrior species, but they weren't stupid. 300 years of warfare with the Federation had taught both sides that direct conflict was expensive and deadly. That's why they had learned to accept human peacekeepers as neutral arbitrators. Deploy the 3rd Battle Fleet, Clickthake ordered. We cannot allow the Federation to steal resources that rightfully belong to the Empire. Within hours, the largest space battle in 50 years began in the asteroid field. Neither side really wanted to fight, but without human mediators to help them save face while backing down, neither could afford to look weak. Pride in politics forced them into a conflict that would cost thousands of lives and billions of credits. The fighting didn't stay contained in the asteroid field. Trade routes running through Corvan and Federation space became war zones. Civilian shipping companies refused to risk their vessels in areas where military patrols might mistake them for enemy supply ships. This created a cascade of shortages throughout the galaxy. On the elegant world of Altair Prime, citizens stood in long lines outside food distribution centers. The Altarians had evolved on a planet with perfect climate control, and their homeworld could only grow decorative plants and artwork-quality fruits. They depended entirely on imported food from agricultural worlds throughout the galaxy. Human cargo ships had carried most of those food shipments, traveling dangerous routes and dealing with hostile customs officials that other species preferred to avoid. Without human traders, food imports had dropped by 70%. How long until the emergency reserves run out? Asked Prime Minister Velshaw, her usually perfect blue skin now showing stress patterns of gray and silver. 6 weeks, possibly 8 if we implement strict rationing, her aide replied. The hegemony of Keth has offered to increase their food shipments, but they want exclusive trading rights and a 20% increase in prices. Velshaw's large silver eyes closed in defeat. The Altarians had always been proud of their independence. Now, they faced starvation unless they accepted whatever terms other species chose to offer. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, a different kind of disaster was unfolding. The Crimson Raiders, a loose alliance of pirate fleets, had avoided the core systems for decades because of human patrol ships. Human captains were crazy enough to chase pirates into asteroid fields, nebulae, and other dangerous areas where sensible alien crews refused to go. With human patrols gone, the Raiders grew bold. Captain Scartail, a reptilian pirate leader, stood on the bridge of his battleship as it approached a gossamer collective transport convoy. The delicate crystalline ships were carrying refined starlight to trade stations in the core systems. Easy prey, Scartail hissed to his crew. No human escort ships, No crazy human captains willing to ram us if we don't surrender. The Gossamer ships had no weapons and no armor. Their beauty lay in their crystal hulls that could process starlight into various forms of energy. Against pirates, they were helpless. The attack lasted 15 minutes. When it was over, 3 Gossamer ships were destroyed and 2 were captured. The survivors spread word throughout the merchant community. The space lanes were no longer safe. Shipping insurance rates increased by 300% overnight. Many cargo companies simply stopped operating in the outer systems. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session for the 15th time in 2 months. The Great Chamber's environmental systems were operating at only 60% efficiency, making conditions uncomfortable for many delegates. Some species had already stopped attending in person, sending holographic representatives instead. Hi. Councillor Zethka struggled to maintain order as angry voices filled the lies. Chamber. The Coven Federation. War is destroying trade routes throughout the Beta Sector. Complained Ambassador. Hierarchs of the Merchant Guild. My people are losing millions of credits every day, and pirate attacks have increased by 400%, added the representative. From the Outer Rim Alliance. Our cargo ships are being captured or destroyed faster than we can replace them. Supreme Hive Mind Unit 77 buzzed angrily. The communication delays are affecting Hive coordination across multiple systems. Our efficiency has dropped by 37%. Councillor Zethka raised all 4 of his arms for silence. The Council is aware of these temporary difficulties. We are working to find solutions. What solutions? Demanded the Altarian delegate. My people are starving because we can't get food shipments through the war zone. The hegemony is demanding we sign exclusive trade deals at prices that will bankrupt our government. Perhaps, suggested the Zephyrian representative in their whispering voice, it would be wise to reconsider our position regarding the humans. The chamber erupted in angry sounds from a dozen different species. Absolutely not, Zethka declared. Humans are a chaos factor that threatens galactic stability. These current problems are simply growing pains as the galaxy adjusts to a more orderly system. But, privately, many delegates were beginning to wonder if order was worth the price they were paying. The crisis deepened when the quantum communication network began experiencing major failures. The alien technicians who had taken over the human-maintained relay stations discovered that the systems were far more complex than they had realized. What humans had made look effortless required knowledge that couldn't be easily transferred or replaced. Systems that had enjoyed instant communication for 200 years suddenly found themselves cut off from the galactic network for hours or days at a time. Military coordination became impossible. Trade negotiations fell apart when participants couldn't maintain reliable contact. Emergency services couldn't coordinate rescue operations across multiple systems. Dr. Zhang Wei, director of the Terra First Research Station on the edge of human space, monitored galactic communications from his laboratory. He had volunteered to stay behind and observe how quickly things would deteriorate without human involvement. It's worse than we predicted, he told his assistant as they reviewed the latest data. Communication network efficiency is down 68%. Intersystem trade has dropped by 45%. Border conflicts have increased by 200%. His assistant, a young woman named Lisa Park, looked at the charts with mixed emotions. Should we feel good about this? People are suffering out there. Dr. Zhang shook his head. We tried to tell them what would happen. They chose not to listen. Sometimes the only way to teach someone the value of something is to let them live without it for a while. He turned back to the monitors showing the deteriorating situation throughout the galaxy. The question is, how long will it take them to swallow their pride and ask us to come back? The answer he suspected, would depend on how much more chaos the galaxy can endure before its leaders realized that some problems required chaotic solutions. Admiral Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck of the Terra Alliance Command Station, watching human construction ships work on expanding the orbital defenses around New Geneva. A year ago, she had been a cargo ship captain hauling supplies between alien worlds. Now she commanded the largest fleet in human space and spoke for over 300 human colonies that had united under the Terra Alliance banner. The transformation had been remarkable. Cut off from galactic markets and trade networks, human colonies had been forced to become completely self-sufficient. The challenge had sparked innovations that surprised even human scientists. New terraforming techniques, advanced manufacturing systems, and military technologies that the Galactic Council had never imagined. "Admiral," her aide announced, "another diplomatic mission is requesting permission to enter human space. This one is from the Altarian government." Sarah didn't turn away from the viewport. "Tell him the same thing we told the others. No negotiations until the Galactic Council formally apologizes for the behavioral modification protocols and guarantees human independence." It was the 15th diplomatic mission in 3 months. The aliens were getting desperate. The galaxy had not recovered from humanity's departure. If anything, things were getting worse. The Corvan Federation War had spread to involve 6 different species and was consuming resources throughout the Beta sector. The Crimson Raiders and other pirate groups had grown so bold that they were attacking major trade stations. Communication failures meant that some star systems hadn't heard from their governments in weeks. But the worst problem was one that most species were trying to ignore. The early warning systems. Dr. Elena Martinez, former head of the Galactic Deep Space Monitoring Project, now worked from a research facility on the human world of New Earth. Her team had built the sensor networks that watched the empty space between galaxies, looking for signs of external threats. For the past year, she had been sending automated reports to the Galactic Council about concerning readings from the dark space beyond the galactic rim. The reports were ignored or dismissed by alien scientists who didn't understand the subtle patterns that indicated danger. "The energy signatures are getting stronger," Elena told Admiral Chun during their weekly briefing. "Whatever's out there, it's moving closer to our galaxy." Sarah studied the data displays with growing concern. "How long do we have?" "Hard to say. Could be months, could be years. But the pattern matches historical records from the last Void Hunter incursion 3,000 years ago. The Void Hunters were a nightmare from galactic history. Extragalactic predators that appeared every few millennia to harvest advanced civilizations before disappearing back into the dark between galaxies. The last time they had come, they had destroyed dozens of species before the combined might of the galaxy had driven them away. "Does the Council know about this?" Sarah asked. Elena nodded grimly. "I've sent them 17 reports in the past 6 months. They keep assigning the analysis to different committees. Without human scientists to interpret the data, they can't recognize the threat patterns." Sarah made a decision that would reshape the galaxy. "Prepare a message to all human fleet commanders. I want our deep space patrol ships redeployed to the galactic rim. If the Void Hunters are coming back, we need to know about it before they're knocking on our door." Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was facing its own crisis of leadership. Councilor Zethka had aged visibly in the past year. The stress of managing a galaxy falling apart had worn down his usual confidence. The communication systems in the council chamber were working at less than 40% efficiency, forcing many delegates to attend via unreliable, holographic links that frequently cut out mid-sentence. "The situation in the outer rim has become critical," reported Ambassador Irix. "We've lost contact with 12 systems completely. Pirates control most of the shipping lanes. Several smaller species are facing extinction because they can't get essential supplies. And the Corvan Federation war shows no signs of ending, added another delegate. Both sides are too proud to negotiate without neutral mediators. And they refuse to accept mediation from species they consider biased. The Zephyrian representative floated in their atmospheric bubble, their misty form seeming more agitated than usual. Perhaps it is time to acknowledge that our current approach is not working. Zethka's compound eyes focused on the Zephyrian. What are you suggesting? That we send an official delegation to human space to negotiate their return to the galactic community. The chamber erupted in the usual chaos of alien languages and angry protests. But this time, the protests were weaker than before. Many delegates were privately thinking the same thing. Supreme hive mind. Unit 77 buzzed loudly enough to be heard over the noise. The hive mind has calculated the costs of current galactic conditions versus the benefits of human reintegration. The mathematics clearly favor negotiating their return. But they abandoned their responsibilities, protested one delegate. They left entire systems without protection or support. No, said a new voice from the chamber entrance. They were expelled from the galactic community for refusing to have their children's minds altered. Everyone turned to see Elena Vasquez walking into the chamber. She looked older in more civilian clothes instead of her diplomatic uniform. But her presence commanded immediate attention. Former ambassador, Zethka said carefully, "You no longer have standing to address this council." Elena smiled the same unsettling smile she had worn a year ago. "I'm not here as a human ambassador. I'm here as a private citizen with information you need." She walked to the center of the chamber and activated a holographic display. 3 days ago, human deep space sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching from extragalactic space. The pattern matches historical records of Void Hunter scout fleets. The chamber fell silent. Every species had ancient records of the Void Hunters. They were the monsters that parents used to frighten children, the ultimate threat that had shaped galactic civilization for millennia. "You're lying," whispered one delegate. "The Void Hunters are just stories." "The energy readings are real," Elena replied. "Dr. Elena Martinez has been trying to warn you for months, but your scientists can't interpret the data without human expertise. The Void Hunters are real, they're coming, and you have perhaps 6 months before their scout ships reach our galaxy." Counselor Zethka felt fear settle into his chest like ice. What do the humans want? Elena's expression became deadly serious. Complete sovereignty over human space and colonies. Formal recognition of the Terra Alliance as an independent government. And the permanent dissolution of the behavioral modification protocols. And in exchange, we'll save your galaxy from the Void Hunters, again. The council chamber remained silent as alien delegates considered their options. They could maintain their pride and face the Void Hunters with a fractured galaxy. Or they could swallow their arrogance and accept that they needed the chaotic, unpredictable, dangerous humans after all. Outside the station, human sensor arrays continued their lonely watch on the dark spaces between galaxies, where ancient nightmares were stirring to life. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Terra Alliance flagship, defiance as the massive human fleet moved toward the galactic core. Behind her, 300 warships followed in perfect formation. These weren't the same cargo vessels and patrol boats that had left alien space a year ago. These were purpose-built war machines, designed with technologies that human engineers had developed during their isolation. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we're receiving distress signals from the Nexus Prime system. Void Hunter attack ships have broken through the outer defenses." Sarah nodded grimly. The Void Hunters had arrived 3 days early, catching the galaxy's fractured defenses completely unprepared. Reports coming in from across the galaxy painted a picture of devastation. The aliens' scattered fleets couldn't coordinate effectively without human communication systems and human tactical expertise. Time to the Nexus system? 4 hours at maximum burn, Admiral. Sarah turned to her communications officer. Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them we're coming, that this time we do things our way. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. These men and women had spent the past year preparing for this moment, knowing that eventually the galaxy would need human help again. They just hadn't expected it to come in the form of an extragalactic invasion dot in the Nexus Prime system. The situation was desperate. Counselor Zethka watched from the Council Station's command center as Void Hunter ships tore through the system's defenses. The enemy vessels were unlike anything in the galactic databases, organic-looking ships that seemed to twist reality around themselves as they moved. Their weapons didn't just destroy targets. They unmade them, leaving empty space where ships and stations had been moments before. The 3rd Defense Fleet has been destroyed, reported his aide, her voice shaking. The Void Hunters are moving toward the inhabited worlds. 3 Zephyrian military ships tried to intercept the enemy formation. The elegant crystal and metal vessels opened fire with their most advanced energy weapons. The beam struck the lead Void Hunter ship and simply disappeared, absorbed by the twisted geometry of its hull dot in response. The Void Hunter vessel extended something that looked like a tentacle made of dark energy. Where it touched the Zephyrian ships, they ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, simply removed from reality as if they had never been built. How do we fight something like that? Zethka whispered. His question was answered when space around the system suddenly filled with new ships. UN vessels dropped out of hyperspace in a coordinated assault formation that no alien admiral could have organized. Where the galaxy's defenders had attacked the Void Hunters with energy weapons and conventional missiles, the humans came with something different. Admiral Chun watched as her fleet engaged the enemy. Deploy the reality anchors and fire quantum disruptors on my mark. The human ships had spent a year developing weapons specifically designed to fight Void Hunters, based on ancient records and theoretical physics that other species had dismissed as impossible. While alien scientists had tried to understand Void Hunter technology through conventional analysis, human engineers had approached the problem like the chaotic thinkers they were. Reality anchors deployed, reported the tactical officer. Enemy ships are showing signs of spatial distortion reduction. Fire all weapons. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that attacked the fundamental nature of space-time itself. Quantum disruptors created pockets of normal physics around the Void Hunter ships, forcing them to exist in conventional reality where they could be hurt. Gravity bombs collapsed space around enemy vessels, trapping them in spatial distortions of human making. The largest Void Hunter ship, a nightmare creature half a kilometer long, turned its attention to the human fleet. Reality bent around its hull as it prepared to unleash the same weapon that had erased the Zephyrian vessels. Incoming dimensional weapon, the tactical officer warned. Hold position, Sarah ordered calmly. Let it fire. The dark energy tentacle reached out toward the Defiance, but instead of erasing the human flagship, it struck something invisible that sparkled with rainbow colors. The reality anchor field around the human ships forced the Void Hunter weapon to obey normal physics, turning it from an unstoppable force into just another energy beam that the Defiance's shields could handle. Return fire. Full spread. Human weapons struck the Void Hunter flagship from 6 different directions at once. Quantum torpedoes tore holes in its twisted hull. Reality bombs forced sections of the ship back into normal space-time where conventional explosions could damage them. Within minutes, the massive enemy vessel was breaking apart. The smaller Void Hunter ships tried to retreat, but human pursuit vessels were faster and more maneuverable. The battle that alien fleets had been losing for days was over in less than 2 hours. On Nexus Prime, The council chamber was eerily quiet as alien delegates watched the human fleet clean up the last Void Hunter vessels. "Incredible," whispered the Zephyrian representative. "How did they know how to fight them?" Elena Vasquez, who had remained on the station throughout the battle, smiled slightly. "Because humans don't think like you do. You tried to understand Void Hunter technology so you could copy it. Humans figured out how to break it." Admiral Chun's voice came through the communication system, which was suddenly working at full efficiency now that human technicians were operating it again. "Nexus Prime, this is Admiral Chun. The immediate threat has been neutralized, but our sensors show more Void Hunter fleets approaching from extragalactic space. We estimate you have perhaps 6 months before the main invasion force arrives." Counselor Zethka activated his communicator with shaking hands. "Admiral Chun, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally request that humanity resume its place in galactic civilization." There was a long pause before Sarah's voice responded. "Counselor, humanity never wanted to leave galactic civilization. We were forced out because you couldn't accept us as we are. If we're coming back, it's going to be on different terms." "What terms?" Zethka asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Complete human autonomy over our own space and colonies. Recognition of the Terra Alliance as a sovereign government equal to any other galactic power. Permanent prohibition of behavioral modification protocols or any other attempt to change human nature. And formal acknowledgement that human colonies and fleets will operate according to human rules, not council regulations." The alien delegates looked at each other with expressions that ranged from resignation to relief. They had spent a year learning what the galaxy was like without human chaos. Now they were being offered the chance to have that chaos back, but as partners rather than subjects. "The council accepts your terms," Zethka said quietly. 6 months later, Elena Vasquez stood once again in the great council chamber on Nexus Prime. But this time, she wasn't there as a human ambassador to an alien government. She was there as Earth's representative to the new Galactic Federation, an organization where humans were equal partners rather than junior members. The chamber looked different now. Human-designed communication systems provided crystal-clear connections to every member world. Human engineers had rebuilt the environmental systems to be more efficient and reliable. Most importantly, the entire galaxy was now protected by an early warning network operated jointly by human and alien scientists. The Void Hunter invasion had been defeated, but not by any single species. It had taken human innovation, Zephyrian wisdom, Altarian creativity, and the industrial might of dozens of other races working together. The key difference was that this time, everyone had contributed what they did best instead of trying to force everyone to think and act the same way. The floor recognizes representative Vasquez of the Terra Alliance announced, the current council president, a rotating position that would be held by a human next year. Elena stepped forward, older now, but still carrying herself with quiet confidence. The Terra Alliance is pleased to report that the new deep space monitoring stations are fully operational. We have confirmed that no Void Hunter forces remain in our galaxy, and our early warning systems are watching for any future incursions. She paused and looked around the chamber at delegates from hundreds of different species. 1 year ago, this council decided that human unpredictability was a threat to galactic stability. You learned that stability without adaptability is just another word for stagnation. Chaos without order is destruction. But order without chaos is death. The chamber was quiet as delegates considered her words. The galaxy is stronger now, because we've all learned to value what makes each species unique instead of trying to make everyone the same. The humans bring chaos and innovation. The Zephyrians bring wisdom and perspective. The Altarians bring beauty and creativity. The hegemony brings organization and efficiency. We need all of these things to survive and thrive. She smiled, and this time it wasn't the unsettling expression that had frightened alien delegates a year ago. It was the warm smile of someone who had seen their worst fears come true and discovered that the ending could still be better than anyone had imagined. The Void Hunters are gone, but they'll return eventually. When they do, we'll be ready for them. Not as separate species trying to survive alone,